The Hollowing. In the summer of 2012, on what I think was the 23rd of August, my cousin Elena and I drove deep into the pine forests of northern Idaho. We were on our way to a small secluded town called Black Hollow to collect herbs for a healing ceremony her grandmother had planned. The road was narrow, flanked by towering pines that seemed to lean inward, their branches clawing at the sky. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and resin, and the sun was already sinking low, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Elena pulled into a rundown rest stop to refuel the car and grab a snack. I stayed behind, leaning against the passenger seat, staring out at the darkening woods. The rest stop was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the world is holding its breath. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the hum of the engine lull me into a half-sleep. That's when I felt it. Something cold and wet brushed against my neck like the touch of a hand dipped in icy water. My eyes snapped open, and the smell hit me, a nauseating mix of mildew and rotting meat. My stomach churned and I gagged, trying to turn my head. But I couldn't move. My body felt frozen, paralyzed, as if the air around me had turned to ice. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring my vision, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Thud, thud, thud. I managed to shift my gaze to the car window. Elena was there, her face pale and her eyes wide with terror. She was pounding on the glass, her mouth moving frantically, but I couldn't hear her over the ringing in my ears. I focused on her lips, trying to make out the words. My blood turned to ice when I realized what she was saying. The hollowing. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I remembered a story my grandfather had told me years ago, one I'd begged him to repeat until he finally relented. He'd spoken of the hollowing, a creature born from the darkest corners of the forest, a spirit that preyed on those who wandered too far into its domain. It was said to be born from the despair of those who had died alone in the woods. Their souls, consumed by hunger and loneliness, the hollowing would latch onto the living, feeding on their fear and weakness, until it hollowed them out completely, leaving nothing but an empty shell. Grandfather had warned me that if I ever encountered it, I had to show no fear. Look it in the eye, he'd said, and speak your truth. If your heart is true, it will release you. But if you falter, it will take you and you'll become one of them. I forced myself to turn my head, my muscles screaming in protest. The creature was there, its form shifting and indistinct, like smoke caught in a breeze. Its eyes were hollow, pits, and its mouth stretched too wide, filled with rows of jagged, broken teeth. The smell of decay was overwhelming, and I felt bile rise in my throat. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I locked eyes with the creature and whispered, "I am not yours." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like a dying breath, the creature dissolved into mist and the smell vanished. I gasped, my body finally free, and doubled over, retching. Eleanor yanked the car door open and slid into the driver's seat, her hands trembling on the wheel. We didn't speak as she pulled back onto the road, the forest closing in around us. About 15 minutes later, Elena slammed on the brakes, nearly hitting a line of cars stopped ahead of us. A police barricade blocked the road, and officers were directing traffic to turn around. In the distance, I could see flashing lights and a cluster of people gathered near a tour bus. Their faces were blank, their eyes hollow, as if they'd seen something they couldn't comprehend. Elena muttered a curse under her breath and turned the car around, heading back the way we'd come. We found a dingy motel a few miles back and checked in, the weight of what had happened still pressing down on us. The room was dim, the air stale, and the TV flickered as Elena turned it on. A news anchor appeared on the screen, her face drawn and serious. "Breaking news," she began, her voice shaky. "A horrific incident has occurred on a tour bus traveling through the Black Hollow region. One passenger has been confirmed dead, and several others injured in what witnesses are describing as a frenzied attack. The suspect, a man identified as 34-year-old Daniel Hargrove, reportedly began screaming about voices in the trees before assaulting the victim with a pocket knife. Authorities have not yet released further details." Eleanor turned to me, her face ashen. "The hollowing," she said quietly. "It needed a new host." I couldn't speak. My mind was racing, images of the creature and the hollow-eyed passengers flashing before me. I thought of the victim, of what they must have seen in their final moments. Had they looked into Daniel Hargrove's eyes and seen the hollowing staring back at them? Had they felt its hunger, its emptiness as it claimed another soul? I never found out what happened to Daniel Hargrove after that day. Some said he was institutionalized, others that he vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. But I've never forgotten the look in Elena's eyes that night, or the way the forest seemed to watch us as we drove away. To this day, I avoid the woods after dark, because I know what waits there in the shadows, hungry and hollow. And I know that not everyone who enters comes back whole.